everybody. Welcome back to Popcorn for Dinner. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
It is 420 all month here on Popcorn for Dinner, baby.
Yes, it is.
It's 2020. It's 420 every single day of the month. So this month we are doing stoner movies.
Woo!
Which, that's a pretty excitable way to do it. It should be more like stoner movie.
Yeah.
Totally, man.
So stoked.
Yeah. It's funny because there's a lot of them, some that we have planned where we'll see if we can get a hold of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some that we have planned that I've not seen. But this one is one that I've seen a billion fucking times. But it was your first time, right?
It was my first time seeing it all the way through.
Okay, you'd seen little bits and whatnot.
I feel like we actually had previously sat down to watch it.
I remember once there was a not necessarily a party, but just like people hanging out, and someone put on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as like background noise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's like most people will sit and watch maybe the first like 3 to 5 minutes, and then eventually someone will start like, oh, hey, by the way, and start talking, and then everyone kind of starts talking to each other, and then it just turns into background noise.
Yeah.
I think I recall that.
I had seen up to the van exploding.
Oh, yeah.
And that was it.
That's kind of
Yeah. So
that's a interesting spot to sort of leave off on, because it's like there's so much more to go. Like I was surprised looking at it again that it was like 103 minutes. It's like over an hour 40.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, okay. For some reason in my head I had this idea that it was like 88 minutes, 90 minutes, something real tight like that.
Yeah.
But I was glad that there was more to it, because I mean, again, I've watched it so much, and I've watched the View Askew movies so much that it really just feels like such a fun little romp. It kind of was the perfect time for you to see it after we had watched Dogma relatively recently.
Yeah, that's why I feel like there was a different time where we were watching it and you stopped it, because I wouldn't get some of the references or something like that. Like, yeah,
it's not like it would have derailed the entire viewing, but it's like it's so much better. It has so many fucking Easter eggs and cameos and callbacks and all that stuff. It's like you really have to see all of it.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's stuff that I missed too.
Oh yeah.
And there's absolutely references that just went over my head.
Were there any specific ones that you could think of that you were just like, okay.
And see, I wouldn't even know. That's how far over my head they would have gone. It was just like, oh, that was just something fun to say.
If anybody out there ever listened to Smodcast, then you've heard plenty of tales from the making of this movie, and specifically sort of what they were going for with it, where it's basically like it's literally just a live action cartoon. Like I know I mentioned that to you before we watched it. Like, how apparent was that? Like, how much were you just like, oh my God, look at that?
There were definitely some key moments that were like, that's very cartoon. Like when they're running through the lot and they run into the painted.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like, I love that.
Of course.
That is one of my favorite little bits.
Course.
Will Ferrell's Marshall, Will and Holly, when he goes out the tube on the dam and then he sees them hanging there and he turns in midair while he's falling to like see them and say something to them. Yeah. That is such a sort of like Roadrunner and Coyote moment.
And he's not dead then.
Yeah, exactly. He just comes in the next scene wet. It's like, you fell off a dam.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's something where like I can totally understand people rating it very low, especially like even within just like the hierarchy of the View Askew movies. It's like Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob. A lot of people would probably put Jay and Silent Bob last. Yeah. Just for the sake of like, it's not really taking itself seriously. And it's kind of just, there's a billion gay jokes. Holy crap. That really felt like a sign of the times. Yeah. It was just like, yeah, no, we're just going to do that. Yeah. And anyone who complains was such a small portion of like voices out there that nobody cared. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you really wouldn't do that now. You really couldn't get away with half of those jokes now and not have people be like, fuck this movie. Yeah. So again, I get that too. Like anyone maybe watching it much, much later, watching it now with a mindset of now, being like, good Lord. Yeah. But
I mean, they did do a good job of putting you in like 2001 at the beginning, right. Them discovering the internet.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, that's funny that they have to be shown the internet, that they don't know what the internet is. Because it's like at that point in time, it obviously was not the like in every single household, wirelessly with everybody's phones kind of thing. Yeah. But it still was a well-known thing by 2001. So the fact that they have absolutely no idea what it is, I thought was hysterical. And I loved later that Jay mentions, like, he's like, yeah, something. We saw Holden McNeil. He showed us the internet. Yeah. Like, so that's just a thing that happens, how your friend just shows you that the internet exists. And I think another huge, like, cartoony thing to it that I love, that it was probably like half hour into the movie, I wrote down just how great Kevin Smith is in this movie as Silent Bob with just his face.
Oh, yeah.
Like the moments where he does talk, when he screams at Jay about the sign on the back of the car, which was always one of my favorite moments. Yeah. But I think the thing that I caught this time that was even funnier, I don't know how it got past me all these years, but the fact that he ends that tirade on "you dumb fuck," and then there's the echo because they're by the dam. I never heard that echo before. That killed. I thought that was the greatest thing. And then obviously the later moment when he's talking to Banky and he explains, how he didn't get their permission for exchanging the rights and all that. It's like, Silent Bob knows all this legal jargon. Okay. But so much of it is just him and his face and the looks he gives. And in all the other movies, it's usually, just a couple scenes. It's not really the focus of it. So you don't really appreciate it as much. Yeah. I know it's a weird thing to say because it's like, it's Silent Bob. It's a silly stoner character. But really, it's like the looks that he gives everybody, especially Mewes, throughout the movie, those side-eye glances and the like eye rolling and all that. And the like wide eye stare when something really weird happens. He was always one of my favorites watching this. I remember one of my favorite jokes, which includes another hysterical cartoony moment. Now that I'm thinking about it, we're just going to keep stumbling on them. And it's impossible to talk about the plot of this movie, really, to be like, and then this is what happens here. And then how did they get from here to there? It's like, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite sequences is Jay in the car. And this is another moment that would never play now, debating whether to take his dick out in front of Justice. And he gets the devil pop up on his shoulder and tells him to do it. And then the second devil pops up on his shoulder. That always killed. Like, I don't think that ever fails to get a laugh from me. Yeah. Anytime I watch it. It's just something about the timing of it and the fact that it's just a second. It's like, of course, Jay has two devils on his shoulder.
That beat up the angel.
Yeah, the bitch slapped him. But it's when the angel finally shows up and he's like, look at Silent Bob. Does he think this is a good idea? And Jay like looks over at him kind of almost hopefully, like, yeah, he's got my back. And it's just Silent Bob shaking his head with his eyes wide. Yeah. Like, no. And it's like, oh, okay. Like that moment is just so damn funny. They are a really great duo. Like, considering the fact that Mewes is absolutely not an actor.
Yeah.
At least at that point. Like, he has since sort of taken it more seriously and like done things and whatnot and like been in other people's movies and made his own movie and stuff like that. So it's like he's gotten more serious. But at that time, he's really not an actor.
Yeah.
And Kevin Smith kind of isn't an actor either. But they're just sort of like natural chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
Makes it so fucking funny on all the things that they do, the way that they talk to each other, like the Mewes and his "yous," the fact that he always says "yous guys" and all that super Jersey kind of way to say it, really fucking killed me on that Planet of the Apes gag. The damn yous, damn yous all to hell. Holy crap, that's so funny. And it's watching it again now so much later and knowing so much more about these people and the movies they made and, all that kind of stuff. Because as a kid, I think this was the first one I saw.
Okay.
I saw this and then I saw all the other movie boxes at the video store that also had Jay and Silent Bob on it and was like, oh, these movies, they're all these movies together. So then I kind of backtracked into it. So a lot of these jokes I never got either as a kid. Like when I first watched it, like, what? What?
Yeah.
What was that all about? Who's this guy? Why is Ben Affleck in it twice?
Yeah.
Why is Jason Lee in it twice? Like, what is going on right now? But that Planet of the Apes gag, you know what I mean? It's like you can almost imagine that was just a joke that they've had over the years of like, if it was Mewes in the fucking Planet of the Apes, he'd be like, damn Mewes, all the hell. You know, they make that joke and then they're making this movie and they're like, let's just do that. Let's make a fucking Planet of the Apes parody and have Jay say that. It would be amazing. Like, it really, like, it doesn't feel like it's pandering to anyone except whoever wants to watch this movie. You know, like, it doesn't feel like it's trying to hit any specific style of gags other than its own. You know, it's like it goes off on these weird digressions, like the Scooby-Doo sequence where they wind up in the mystery machine and he gets his kidneys taken, but then that's all a dream.
Yeah.
You know, or the fucking Planet of the Apes thing where he's going off about how that monkey is super smart and all that. All of those kinds of things just feel like buddies goofing around and making a funny movie. Yeah. And it's really, it lends a charm to it that I don't think it would have otherwise. If it felt more mercenary and more like, oh, we're going to hire this guy and he's going to be really funny. We'll hire this guy to be real funny. And, you know, try to make a movie to market to everybody. This movie is so not for everybody.
No.
Sorry, just going through my notes. I don't have many notes for this because I was literally just sitting there watching it and like loving it again. And also I know it like front to back at this point. But I just wrote down in here, Roswell style. he's doing his fucking speech. There's just that super Dutch angle on his face as he looks at the camera. That was something I kind of loved about it again, like, especially right after like Chasing Amy and Dogma. Because Mallrats is almost a little cartoony in its own way. And then Clerks is just so sort of like DIY that you can't really compare. Yeah. But after like Chasing Amy and Dogma, which were very just like structured, sort of down to earth movies, as much as there's crazy mystical Bible nonsense throughout Dogma, it still is relatively, it doesn't ham it up too much. It's kind of more on a human level. In this movie, it seemed like they were just like, let's fucking play with everything we can to make it as weird and crazy as we can. Like those super Dutch angles and goofy like fourth wall breaking all the time.
Yeah,
people
so many times.
All those fucking gags that are really, I did not get them when I was a kid. And so I love them so much more now. Because as a kid, I just sort of like, okay, whatever. Like I never got obviously the first one is the like a Jay and Silent Bob movie. Who would pay to see that? And then both look at it. But I never got the one later with Affleck and Damon when they're doing this. It's like, yeah, you got to do the safe picture, then you do the art picture. And then sometimes you do the one for your friend because he says you owe him. They both look at the camera, which again adds another layer to it. Like this time watching it, because I learned that when they won the Oscar for Good Will Hunting, they forgot to mention Kev and Moj, who were like producers on it. And they brought the script to like get the movie made, and they forgot to thank them on their thing, and they were making Dogma at the time, so they flew out, did the award show, forgot to thank them, and then flew back like heads down, like not like feeling terrible about it. So you can only imagine that that's sort of what that means, like you owe me one. So you got to be in my stupid movie. But man, the pulls in this movie, the weird people that come out of nowhere that you're like, what? This person is in this?
I am so glad that the beginning of the credit sequence is just showing you of the big name people that were in it. There are several notations here that are just, this person? Was that this person? So I'm very glad that they confirmed my suspicions.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that there's no way to not know is Mark Hamill because the name pops up on the screen. That's again super cartoony, but brilliant, and I love it to death.
I'm glad
it's Mark Hamill.
I'm glad that they did that because I might not have put it together.
Yeah, I feel. I mean, even not knowing or not really seeing any of the old Star Wars movies, I have a feeling you might have been tipped off with the hand cutting off and the not again.
Yeah,
that might have been like,
is true.
Is that Mark Hamill? Oh yeah, it's probably Mark Hamill then. Carrie Fisher as the nun. George Carlin as the hitchhiker. Who, God damn it, I've always loved that. I wished he was in the movie more. I love him as Cardinal Glick in Dogma. So I'm glad that they got him back to like do another role. And I think he's in Jersey Girl too. So it's like he and Kev kind of became buds, which is so cool.
That is really cool.
But like just seeing him again on screen, like I've always fucking loved Carlin. There's something about him. I have a couple of his books right over there. Brain Droppings and When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? They're so fucking good. There's just ridiculous. It's a total digression now into George Carlin books, but they're essentially, it's like sometimes there's just like a chapter that's like a funny story in a way that he tells it, and then sometimes there's a whole fucking chapter that's literally just thoughts that he has, and it's just like 4 or 5 pages of one line thoughts all separated. Like no relation to each other, just complete non sequiturs, and it's brilliant. They're so funny. And then speaking of Dogma, of course, I mean, obviously Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, but Chris Rock as Chaka Luther King, the fucking director. Holy shit. You have to imagine he had a blast playing that part.
Oh, yeah.
That was so, it's almost like a caricature of a Chris Rock character, like loud and but he's so brilliant in it. Oh, yeah. And fucking with Jamie Kennedy. Yeah. Also Jamie Kennedy. Like, that's just silly in and of itself, but God, him just tormenting that kid. Yeah. No boogers in it, sir.
When he's sniffing. Cracker. Cracker.
Yeah, turns and sees the guy. Holy crap. He's like rabid in this movie. He's just like off the leash, and it's so fucking good.
That was so great.
I'm trying to think of, well, I mean, he's sort of a bigger part in the movie, so I don't know if I'd necessarily call him a cameo, but I honestly, and I know that lots of people don't necessarily dig him, I love Will Ferrell in this movie. I think him as Will and Holly is fucking perfect. It's like it
could not have been anyone else.
Really, like he's not obnoxious.
Yeah,
or at least he's not as obnoxious as he could get. You know, like he's much more subdued. He's just silly and goofy in the best way, in like almost an elf way, where he's like almost innocently stupid.
Yeah,
he's not malicious and mean and nasty. He's just dumb. Yeah, like when he lets them go.
He's just very ignorant.
Yeah, he lets them go with the orangutan dressed as the boy.
Yeah,
he gets all the way through it. Like, good, go on, you guys can go. Like, all right, so now we're gonna go in there. We're gonna get that monkey and fuck beans. That was them, wasn't it? Like, immediately realizes he was wrong. Or fucking blowing apart the movie character in the movie set. Like, oh, is he gonna be all right?
That also very cartoony, just one big circle through
big
it.
Circle through the movie.
I liked that there was 2 people from Final Destination in that van.
Oh, yeah. Ellie Larder and Sean William Scott. I like both of them. Sean William Scott. I love the fact that it's so different than the like personas that he had kind of been playing up till then.
Like the exact opposite.
Exactly, because like he was Stifler, and then he was in that road trip movie. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I know of it.
Yeah, but he essentially plays a very Stifler-like guy again.
Yeah.
So in this case, being the like braces and really shitty hair and like just being the worst.
Yeah.
It was so funny to see him play it, and he plays it so well too.
But also in that van was one of the girls from Bring It On.
Duck Shoot. I forget how to pronounce her last name. Eliza. It's like Duck Shoot.
Something like that.
I forget, but yeah, I honestly think that this is like the only movie I really ever saw her in.
Oh, that means we're gonna watch Bring It On.
Yeah.
I'm so psyched that you haven't seen that movie.
And then fucking Shannon Elizabeth.
Yeah.
She makes, like, if I don't know if anybody else could have played Justice and made it as like charming as it is and as believable as you can fucking get in a movie like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like in any world with how much of like a creepy, skeevy pervert Jay is, it should never make sense that anybody would be like wooed by him in any sort of way. But she has this just adorable, dorky side to her that almost makes it just believable enough to be like, all right, movie, I'll go on this ride.
Yeah,
it's all right. That moment when she's in the convenience store with the other girls And they're just like, you have to make them do it, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I just can't do that to Jay. Like, why? He's like, because he's just so innocent. Turns to look at him. He's humping the glass. Like, that moment I feel really encapsulates, like, she's like a little over the top with it. And it's like obvious, like, he's not innocent at all. He's so creepy and weird. Like, there's no reason for her to really think that.
Yeah.
But the way that she plays it, you're just like, okay, fine. Let's go.
Speaking of being wooed, though, with Shannon Elizabeth, I did enjoy the line, she didn't tell me to fuck off or pull out the pepper spray.
Yeah, that's a fantastic line. Like, he's self-aware enough to know that that's the typical reaction to what he does.
Yeah.
but apparently not self-aware enough to just not do it anymore.
Yeah.
He's just like, that's just what I am and that's what they do. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's just how it goes.
He really does have so many. They're not even necessarily like the greatest of lines, like in terms of like, oh, that's the most brilliantly written line in the world. But the scenario and the way that he says stuff and just his delivery, his being Jay, you know what I mean? Like the fact that you know that like Mewes is pretty much just there on screen. There's hardly a character there. He's just that's just him on screen. The moment when he's trying to figure out how many days they have to get to Hollywood and everything, it's like, yeah, so they're shooting on Friday, so it's Tuesday, so 8 days. And he holds up 10 fingers too. And Affleck's just like, 3 by my count. And Jay just goes, 3, right, my bad. Like, my bad that I'm terrible at math. Like, it's such a funny way. And then at the end, when Justice is being taken away by the cops, and she says, wait for me. And he says, what, here? Holy crap. Like, because you believe that he believes that he thinks that that's a possibility, that she means right there in that exact spot. Like, wait, here? Oh, that one fucking kills me. And also that right after that, is Will Ferrell with the, hey, stop stealing monkeys. Fuck off. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Moves along.
Oh, Kevin Smith had to have loved flipping the van. That was probably a great day for him. Or a great night, because it was at nighttime that it flipped over to be more dramatic. Yeah,
exactly. And I love that whole thing where it fucking blows up and Jay's screaming for justice and the goddamn choir sings justice is dead, or so Jay thinks. I know I didn't get that as a kid. I just tuned it out. I didn't even think to listen for anything.
Yeah.
But once I learned that, I was like, that's the funniest. That might be my favorite joke in the movie, just for how ridiculous it is. Like, oh, that is cartoon right there. But I was thinking, my personal idea that probably the best day on set for Kevin Smith is fake lightsaber battling Mark Hamill.
This is true.
Like, I wrote down, I was just like, watching the guy who made Clerks lightsaber battle with Mark Hamill is literally just too great. Like, you can't even like write that. The idea is like his first movie talks so much Star Wars. He's clearly just like the hugest Star Wars nerd. And then less than 10 years later, he's making a movie where he is lightsaber battling Mark Hamill. Like, holy shit, that is the fucking coolest thing. I don't care how dumb you think the movie is or how dumb you think Kevin Smith is. Like, that is fucking awesome. Are you kidding me? That's amazing.
That was probably the best day. Also, James Van Der Beek.
Oh, the Jason Biggs Van Der Beek stuff was so good.
Yeah.
I loved it as a kid. Like, I knew of Van Der Beek. I mean, I still have never watched Dawson's Creek or anything like that, but I know of him and I'd seen American Pie and everything. So, like, I got the jokes enough.
Oh, and then one that I'm glad was confirmed, Tracy Morgan?
Yes. Oh, he's so good. I love him as that, especially his reaction to Jay. I don't know what the fuck you just said, but you touched my heart.
I love Tracy Morgan.
That was a great pull as well. Like, holy crap, that dude. I love Diedrich Bader as the security guard who's chasing them. Like, yes. I knew him as Oswald on the Drew Carey show. And that's pretty much it. I know he's been, and then whenever I see him in anything else, it's like, oh, hey, look, it's Oswald.
Yeah.
But that him as that guy, he's just so funny. I really like Diedrich Bader.
He was great.
And afterwards you say, oh, what a lovely tea party.
Yeah.
But man, I honestly, of all of them, because there's a lot of them, and I'm sure that there's plenty that like we're gonna forget and remember later, like, oh my god, that's right. But honestly, truthfully, I think Affleck is fucking phenomenal in this movie. Like, not even an overstatement of like, oh my, because he only has, a handful of scenes. He's holding it first, and then later he's just playing himself or whatever. But he gets some of like the best laughs from me. His whole scene with Jay and Silent Bob when he's showing him the internet and talking to them about all that stuff. His growing frustration that they just cannot understand like what he's explaining to them. It's like they're not talking about you guys.
Yeah.
Fictional characters. He does a little hand signs like you're not signing anything, but he just doing it. That is amazing. Never makes me not laugh. Like, am I getting through to you at all?
Yeah.
Like realizing that Jay is just hopeless.
Yeah. Or
when he's talking to Bob, he's like, "Don't you guys ever want anything more in your life? I know this poor son of a bitch does."
Yeah.
So Bob's like, "Me? What?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I see it in your eyes." Fuck, Lord, when's gonna be my time? It's just so over the top, but like,
and then he gets Silent Bob like agreeing.
Oh yeah, yeah,
he's starts like nodding, and then looks at Jane like, no.
Yeah, the little hand wave, like, no. Yeah, and then he does the like, he knows what I'm talking about, like,
yeah.
And then later when he's Affleck on the set of Good Will Hunting 2, which another joke that I never really truly got. I've only seen Good Will Hunting like once or so, but it's like the fact that it's like it's a Miramax movie. The way that they talk about it at the beginning of the movie, it's like I thought they only made classy pictures. It's like it's one of those like dramatic movies. So the idea that there's this shotgun sequence in the sequel is so silly. But it's when the fucking security guard pops in. And he's like, "Sorry, boys, we got a 1022 or whatever." And Affleck goes, "Oh, no, because I wasn't with a hooker today." Ha ha! That ha ha is there's so much gusto behind it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he is so good. We got to watch, I'm sad we didn't watch it before this, but we got to watch the bloopers for this movie. Because the scene from Good Will Hunting 2, when they do the little huddle, him and Damon, and they turn around and I don't like the sound of them apples, Will. What are we gonna do? They cannot hold it together. There's like 5 or 6 outtakes where they just bust up as soon as he starts talking. It's so funny. And I honestly, I really, really love him in this movie. It's that perfect level of like Affleck charming, but he's able to be silly with it. Like he's able to be such a goofball that it seems like he only gets to be with Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
It's like he's done other stuff, but it's like never really to that level of like sort of embarrassing himself. You know what I mean? Like kind of being a little bit over the top.
So somewhere between my note about Tracy Morgan and my note saying I love James Van Der Beek, I wrote, I'm sure there's a lot of people and references that are going over my head. So somewhere in between them meeting Tracy Morgan's character and then meeting James Van Der Beek's character.
Yeah, well, I know there's because I think that's them kind of going through all those the movie sets and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's like there's a Good Will Hunting one, and then Gus Van Sant with a pile of money. It's like he is like the joke there sort of is like Gus Van Sant is he's the guy who made that remake of Psycho, that shot for shot remake of Psycho.
Okay.
And simply it was essentially just like an experiment. It wasn't like he thought he could make it better or he was like, oh, this will be way better in color or these actors are better. It was literally just like, will it have the same feel or is the magic of a movie somewhere, you know, in between? You know, it's like you can recreate the exact same shots and do the exact same things, but it won't be the same movie. It's like this guy fucking just did that. Like that was his project. That was the movie that they gave him a bunch of money essentially. Like, what do you want to do? And instead of doing anything else, he's like, I'm just gonna do this crazy experiment. Like he's such like an artiste kind of guy. So that showing him as like a money grubbing, I don't give a shit about this character is really funny. Or at least like that's the gag of the scene. Like, Jesus, Ben, I said I'm busy counting his money. And then the Scream 4 with the orangutan where the monkey is in there. And
that
that's
one I did get.
Shannon Doherty from Mallrats.
Mm-hmm.
So like she's back, she gets her little scene. And I love Wes Craven, the fact that he's in it. And just what a fucking nice guy that dude was, and how like friendly. Like you'd think like a name Wes Craven, who makes terrifying bloody horror movies, but he's just like the kindliest guy. Just like, oh hey guys, let's go. Well, market research says people love monkeys. And then Jay runs in and says, "We love this monkey." And Wes goes, "See?" He's so funny in it. And then, fuck, was there another one? I don't know if they went through another set. Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, I wrote down a couple of references to other other, chunks of the View Askew universe that I wonder if you happen to notice at the beginning when Jay is talking about Morris Day and the Time and how great they are and how the song "Jungle Love," is the best song in the world or whatever. He describes it as written by God herself. And it's like, of course he says herself because he's met her.
Yeah.
In the timeline of these movies, he has met God and knows that it's a her.
Yeah.
So he just throws that into conversation now without even thinking about it. It's just like written by God herself. Yeah. I love that one.
I did not catch that.
I did love when they're breaking into the Provasic place to free the animals and everything. As Bob pulls out the grappling hook that he uses in Mallrats, and then they do the exact same pose, but they're wearing ski masks this time. So I'm assuming that Jay is sticking his tongue out, but you can't tell when he puts up the rock horns. I also love how much they smash through windows in this movie. So they go up the fucking the grappling hook thing, and it somehow launches them through a window, and then later fucking with the bike, and they crash through the window into the dressing room. I'm sure that there's another one. They go through so much glass in this movie. Also, just the monkey itself. From the end credits of Mallrats.
Oh,
where
yeah.
Jay and Bob are walking down this road with a monkey, just like. Because they do, and so it's like, okay, so we're gonna pay that off. Yeah. They've got a monkey now. I love the plot line of the movie. I really do. It makes for such a perfect road movie.
Yeah.
Just like Hollywood's making a movie out of the comic book you guys are based on, and people are making fun of it. So you have to go or Jay wants to go and stop it so that people stop making fun of them.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it's not. There is money involved, but they're kind of foregoing that money to do this. Like it's not a get rich or save the world or anything super great. It's literally just like stop making fun of us.
Yes.
So we're gonna go and ruin this movie so that doesn't happen. Honestly, the weirdest thing, like sitting here and talking about all these gags and jokes and things at work and the hilarious cameos and all that kind of stuff, for being considered a stoner movie, there is so little stonering in it. Because it's like one of them is a dream.
Yeah.
When they're with the Scooby Gang and the fucking Mystery Machine and the doobie snacks. It's like that didn't even happen. It's like they get arrested for having weed.
Yeah.
And then there's the like bong saber at the end that Jay takes a rip off of. That is like, okay, I guess that if that works and if that's how that whatever that thing is, if he's actually taking a rip, so I guess that would count. But really, there's not.
Yeah.
And then they kind of reference it with the Tracy Morgan scene where they're in the union, which is a great joke. But yeah, like there's really
and then
very
at the
little.
very beginning they're selling.
Right. But like that's it. You would think, I mean, not that I would like change it necessarily.
Yeah.
But you'd think that there would be like
more smoking
and maybe more like selling, or like going on their journey maybe to like make money or, to get from one place to another. But it kind of just like, blah, 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 who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares how they're getting to wherever? They're getting a ride. They're doing this. They're doing that. Doesn't matter. Because and it just dawns on me that they just show up in Hollywood in a Jeep, like some chick driving it, and then they get out.
Yep.
And it's just like, when did that happen? Like, who cares? They're in Hollywood now. It doesn't matter. Were there any specific things that you kind of noticed that jumped out at you that was particularly like funny or clever or a callback to something or whatever, other than like the super obvious ones? Like are you even supposed to be here today? Don't get me started. Like,
yeah.
That one's a little cheesy, but whatever.
I did like seeing all the different, characters walking out of the movie theater at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun.
That really hit me at the end there, was seeing them all kind of in one big shot. I mean, I know I'm pretty sure it cut from one to the other, but it felt like all of his characters together at once. It was so much fun. I loved seeing Hooper again with Banky. That was just such a fun character in Chasing Amy that I didn't think you would ever see again. And all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, there's Hooper. The sisters, obviously.
Yeah.
Talking about what, Chasing Amy? That would never work as a movie.
Yeah.
And fucking Walton Bry as Steve Dave and Fanboy. That's always fun to me. I love seeing those guys. And I've always loved that end sequence with Morris Day in the time. When they do the dance scene. It's like, for one, that movie introduced me to Jungle Love as a song, and it's so fucking good and great. I love that bass line. I love like everything about it. It's so much fun. And seeing them do that, like the fact that they're actually huge fans and we're able to like go on stage and dance with them and all that kind of stuff. Like, again, it's just sort of like wish fulfillment in the coolest of ways. It's just like, oh, I got into the movie business and I love Star Wars. Then I'm going to be in a scene with Carrie Fisher, and I'm going to be in a scene with Mark Hamill, and I love Morris Day and the Time, so I'm going to get them to be in the end of the movie, and I'm going to go on stage with them, and I'm going to dance, and like, just so cool. That movie just exudes fun. It really, like, you know what I mean? It's like,
really does.
If you take it too damn seriously, you're just going to sit there and be like, this is so stupid. Especially because, admittedly, there are way too many gay jokes for my taste these days.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2001, I probably saw it in like 2002, so I was like 12, 13. Like, yeah, I probably laughed a lot harder at those than I'd be like willing to admit. But
I mean, that just calls out James Van Der Beek then. Like,
I did love
calling attention to.
Yeah, that was actually really
Biggs.
cool. Which, I mean, it kind of makes sense too, because like, there's always been that level. Like, I've never really thought of Kevin Smith as like homophobic as much as as stuff like that, or especially just like the humor of Jason Mewes seems to be like the most homophobic sense of humor in the world. But I never really felt that from him, and I know people gave him shit about like Chasing Amy and stuff, and it was like, what? That was a pretty fairly nuanced like view of things, and especially like relationships and sexuality, coming from a like practically admitted like small-minded white straight guy. You know what I mean? And it's like he was showing it from his own perspective. So obviously, things might not be perfect, his representation of the gay community in that movie. But it's like it's respectful. It's not like he's like making a mockery out of anybody. And in this case, this movie, obviously so much of the humor is derived from that kind of stuff because Mewes is the main goddamn character. But I did like having that Van Der Beek scene in there to sort of like temper that down a little bit. Being like, oh, you think everything's gay? Oh, it's so gay. Everything's gay. But you think that monkey's gay. And then that fucking smug ass look he gets on his face when Biggs says that, essentially, he was just like, you're so gay. And he's like, see? Yeah. I love that.
One little moment that I loved was when they walked into Mewes and the door moved, and Mewes was all like amused by it.
Oh yeah, he was just like, yeah. What kind of reaction is that? I've like started this sentence like 8 times in this whole podcast, but it's like just keep jumping from one thing to the other. But like, he does get such great lines and delivery, like when they're dressed up as Blunt Man and Chronic at the movie set, and they're trying to act or whatever, and somebody says something along the lines of like, I'm not going to be talked to by someone in pansy red booties, and Jay looks down and he's just like, I am wearing pansy red booties. Why the fuck didn't you tell me? Like, not realizing what he was wearing. Like, also, when Silent Bob is stuck in the tube, when all the marshals are chasing him and shooting at him, and he pulls him through, and then he is just like Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, that feels like Jay Mewes and Kevin Smith joke, like that he would make a joke like that about Kevin Smith. So they're like, put that in the movie. Honestly, when I was a kid, I think my favorite sequence of the movie, and now it's probably not just because I've grown to appreciate a lot of other stuff in it, like Affleck specifically. I don't think I really appreciated how great he was when I was a kid. But like the standout sequence, and it's kind of the like culmination of the whole movie when, you know, because when Holden's showing them the internet and telling them all these terrible things that people are writing about them, and it cuts to Mewes, who's just like, I'm gonna kill all these motherfuckers, you know, like making that promise and being like, that's so silly. Like they're internet people, and Holden explains that to him, like they're not, you can't go and beat everybody up, and that whole end sequence of them beating everybody up, finding the people who said all this shit, quoting them on it, getting the confirmation that they are that person, and then beating the shit out of them. It's so fucking funny. I loved that. And especially the song Kick Some Ass by Stroke 9. What a fucking 2000s era song. You know what I mean? It's like that song only exists practically for that sequence. Like, you know, like it's like that. There's no more importance to it other than that. And I do love the fact that all the money they get at the end of the movie sort of comes back in Clerks 2, because like Clerks 2, you know, is sort of far removed from this in the sense that like in between this and then Mewes had gone to rehab, and you know, you know, a lot of stuff had sort of changed. So the characters of Jay and Bob, where they're like the new and improved Jay and Silent Bob, where Jay doesn't do drugs anymore and he's all about the Bible and stuff like that. So like there's not much to be like, yeah, and remember back in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? Like there isn't all that much to call back to. But at the end of the movie, when they're talking about reopening the Quick Stop themselves, and they're like, how the fuck are we gonna do that? And Jay, you know, it's like, we don't have the money to do that. And Jay's just like, we do. Like that's why. Because they have the fucking movie money. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, what a great fucking callback. That's amazing. Like, what a great way to use that in the next movie. Like, even just a little bit of reference back to this one. Just to keep it all in the family. I love that. And if you notice, I know they've mentioned before, or I think Kevin Smith has talked about it before, but at the very, very end, when Alanis Morissette as God, brilliant. Loved her in Dogma, love her in this, even though it's just one shot. But her closing the book on the Askewniverse, essentially. And he's like, but if you notice, after that bookmark where it says the end, there's a little bit of book left. So we could squeeze something else out of it. And then Clerks 2 eventually comes. So it's like sort of thinking ahead of like, we're going to close out this series. We're not going to do these anymore. But if we really want to, we could do it. Oh, and the one moment that I really, really dug, especially as a callback to Chasing Amy, but especially because you could tell that it was totally real in terms of the reactions, was at the very, very end of the movie, and everyone's kind of pairing off, and like Justice kisses Jay, and you know, Bob kisses the monkey, and it hops into his arms, and then it shows Jason Lee as Banky holding up Will Ferrell, and he looks at him, he's like, oh, a lot of love in the room. It's like, regardless of what you may have heard, I do not kiss guys. And then Will Ferrell's responsive, all right, slow down, hot shot. And then Jason Lee just busts out laughing. That was so real. You could tell that either that was an improv or he just couldn't hold it in on that line, because it is a good line. But it sounds like an improv to me. Yeah. And just the fact that they keep it in makes it all the better. Like that movie just, again, it just seems like everyone having a shitload of fun. Yeah. It does, I think, exactly what they wanted it to do. You know what I mean? It's like, it's callbacks galore. It's, you know, fun, and just basically hanging out with everyone you want to hang out with over the course of making a movie. Anyone you could dream of hanging out with, from your old buddy, like Affleck or Jason Lee, or fucking Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker, like getting them in your movie, like, oh my God. Yeah. It's just nonstop fun. That opening might be one of my favorite things ever. With the babies? Yeah, the babies growing into Baby them. Harley? Yeah, Baby Harley playing Baby Bob. But it's, for one, just the fact that, like, you know, his mom swears a bunch, so he swears a bunch, so it just grows up into him saying fuck all the time. But the fact that it turns into a rap is so funny. Like, that hooked me so much straight off the bat when I was a kid. It was just that fuck rap. Fuck, motherfuck. Like, oh yeah, just like, seems like he's just riffing and improvising it, like, just for fun, because he loves the word fuck. There's so many fucks in this movie, and inserted into lines where you almost imagine they weren't there at first, and Mewes just did it. Yeah, which is one that always sticks with me. I really honestly don't know why. It's just the placement of the word fucking in the sentence just makes me laugh, and I don't really get it. But it's at the end when they're talking with Banky, and he's like, man, do you understand all this, like everything we had to do to get here, you know, to try to stop this movie? It's like, I fell in love. Fucking, we stole a monkey. For some reason, putting fucking before the sentence, really, you know what I mean? Like, instead of being like, we stole a fucking monkey, it's fucking, we stole a monkey. Something about that is so funny, and it feels like a Mewesism. It feels like he just threw it in there because he kind of had to say the word fuck. He had to get it out.
Yeah.
And so fucking, we stole a monkey is so funny. I don't know why. That might be like my favorite single line of dialogue. Fucking, we stole a monkey.
It was definitely a lot of fun to watch.
I'm glad that it wasn't just like a drag of like, oh man, this feels dated. Because it does in certain aspects.
Yeah.
It's like no smartphones in the movie, really. So it's like that kind of dates it. But it doesn't, because it's not like they're all using a bunch of flip phones all the time, or there's tons of like outdated technology or whatever. It's more so just an absence of all the technology we have now.
Pretty much.
But other than that, it kind of, and all the gay jokes. Yeah. The ridiculous amount of gay jokes.
Yes.
I always have fun watching it. It's definitely like a comfort movie. It's just like, oh, you just throw that on, and there'll be something funny happening in the background. You can always be like, oh, fuck this part, you know. That it's that kind of movie.
They're stealing a monkey.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that wraps up the first week of Stoner Movie Month, even though it didn't have that much stonering in it. But hopefully, as things continue, we'll find some more. Just more stonery of a stoner movie. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like this necessarily represents the genre. You know what I mean? Like as a genre, it's definitely very distinct. And this kind of feels more like a buddy road movie that happens to kind of include a pot in it. You know, it doesn't really necessarily feel like a stoner movie. I don't know, but I guess as we watch more, we'll kind of get a better feel for it. Because like I said, I haven't really watched a whole bunch of them.
Yeah,
it's not like I'm like, oh shit, dude, all those Cheech and Chong movies, they're the best. Like I've never fucking seen them. Never seen a lot of them. So we will keep this going and hopefully having some more fun while we are locked up at home for the month.
Yes.
I had honestly thought for a moment, because I was like, yeah, the 420 thing is great. But I was like, should we do like isolation movies and just scrap the stoner movie thing and do movies where people are stuck somewhere? It's like, should have mentioned that at the beginning of this so we could just stop and watch a different movie. Alrighty, I think that's going to wrap it up for Popcorn for Dinner this week. This is Jeff.
And Kelly. Snoochie Boochies.